Welcome to the Action Shooting Show. We have a special international show tonight. We are doing a after action report on the 2024 European Run and Gun, and that is put on by Thomas. And can you pronounce your last name? I'm not sure. I think I'd butcher it.
What, the real one or the Facebook one?
Whichever one you want to give.
My real last name is Thomas Isendan.
Okay.
And my Facebook name is Thomas Ulwembu.
Because that is, I think you said that's something from Africa, right? From where you studied, was it entomology? Did you go down there and study bugs or something?
Yeah, I studied tarantulas, and it actually means spider in Zulu.
Okay. All right. We've talked about this before. So Thomas and me, we go back to 2015, 2016 from the kind of the three-gun scene. He spent a lot of time at Rock Castle out in Kentucky, and I was shooting a lot of matches down there. We also have our good friend John on here. So Thomas, why don't you give a little introduction about yourself, whatever you want to share about yourself, and then we'll let John kind of do the same before we get into the meat of the episode.
Well, yeah, I started shooting in '97. Started shooting dynamic matches in 2006 in Holland, and started shooting dynamic matches in 2008 in the US. But that was with submachine guns at the Knob Creek machine gun shoot, and climbed up in rank into that up to I was assistant match director there. 2012 was my first three-gun match at the Blue Ridge Mountain three-gun championship at Rock Castle. Had a little mishap there, and that's where it kind of took off for me. I fell on saber range while shooting pistol, broke my foot, which I didn't know at the time, and just used duct tape and kept running for 2 days. 2014, I shot Task Force Decker three-gun championship in Georgia, and again the Blue Ridge, and I kept doing that like every year to 2019. So I visited the state for twice a year in that period, and then in 2016 I stayed for 3 months, and then 2017 I stayed for 3 months as well. And my first run and gun was actually the Legion one in 2017, and that's where mine started to happen. That's how I got the idea to do it in Holland.
Now was it the Legion one or was it the March match? Because they had, I think, Matt's original, very, very first one was in March, and then John may know later that year's when they had, and then later that year, I think they had their very first Legion. So, okay. But so that was, as we've said before, that was the kind of, as far as we know, the first run and gun east of the Mississippi, and obviously that has taken off. We were just talking about here on the East Coast, and now it's over in Holland, or has been over in Holland for a little bit. I shouldn't say now, but Thomas kind of took that and went over. We'll talk about that. John, you've been on before, but maybe give us just a little bit about yourself.
Thomas's match is actually longer running than most of the U.S. matches and match organizers as well. So, little kudos over there for longevity. I'm John. I shoot a lot of run and gun. What was that, Thomas?
I'm trying to set my camera up better.
Oh, okay. I shoot a lot of run and gun. I keep a log, which is woefully out of date, but this is probably like my mid 40th match, 45th or something like that, closing in on 50 pretty soon. I also admin the RNG discussion group on Facebook. If you're in that, I just keep things organized and make sure the group doesn't get zucked. Beyond that, I don't really have much of a job. And I've been wanting to attend Thomas's match for many years, ever since we first met. We shook hands at that first Legion match in 2017. I was like, there's some guy from Holland here? That's bizarre. But ever since I found out about it, I've wanted to attend it, calendars never really worked out, but this year I happened to be free, and had some family who's going to be in Europe at the same time, and managed to just turn it into a great overall trip. I was in London for a week, then Amsterdam for a long weekend, and then Switzerland for a week, and then Paris for a day or two, and then finally flew home. So turned it into a great trip, and yeah, figured I'd come on the Action Shooting Show and talk about it a little bit, because a lot of people aren't even aware of the match, much less how it's run and how it's different than the matches we're used to shooting here in the US.
Yeah, and I'm excited to go over that because in the States, a lot of the matches are very, very similar in how they're run, which is fine. That's a good thing. It's you kind of know what to expect, but just being in a different country, having different restrictions, we'll go over. The matches run different, and I'm hoping people pay attention to this because the traditional run and gun is great. Sometimes you don't have the amount of property, you don't have the right range to run a run and gun. I mean, a lot of running guns, you need big property with lots of room, and this may kind of spur some ideas for other people on how to maybe run a run and gun type match, even here in the States, differently than it's being run. So Thomas, why don't you give us a quick description of like the match flavor, how it runs, maybe how it's different to an American one. I mean, the match you shot from Matt, things have probably changed a little bit, but generally, except for like doing practice score now instead of, a little card that you write your scores on, a lot of the formats not really changed a whole terribly lot.
Yeah, what we do is we have well, for Holland it's a big property for a shooting range, but if you look at the States, it's small, and because of that, and because of course of the rules and laws in Holland, I was like, well, I need to figure something out to make it interesting. So what I did is I combined a obstacle course with shooting. So what we do is we make laps of just over 750 yards, and there's in between 10 to 20 obstacles in that. You can do a 3K, which is 4 laps, and you shoot pistol twice and rifle twice. The shooting is very simple because we also get people that have never shot before. So to be able to accommodate everybody, I kept the shooting kind of simple. John and I talked about it to see if we could change something, but I'm not really sure if I can keep the momentum going when the match is going on. So we do a 3K, a 6K, a 13K, and then since this year we do the badass division, which means you do all 3 in one day. This year was also the first year that we did 2 days, and we accommodated over 150 competitors. So yeah, that's kind of and the route is all set out. So you have a red and white tape along the whole route, so people don't get lost.
Yeah, that's awesome. 150 people is that's definitely a lot. So we'll kind of, and we'll get more into the match here in a second. We'll kind of switch gears. So, John, you were going out there, and I know you mentioned in kind of after action you sent me, the big thing is getting guns over there. And that was, I guess, not a problem for you in this case?
Mm-hmm. So we've got a couple mutual friends who've gone over to Europe to shoot some of the brutality matches recently and elected to ship their stuff over there. And we chatted through the implications and the costs, but it's pretty expensive. It takes a long time. You got to ship your stuff out 6 weeks to 8 weeks in advance. Then after the match, when you ship it back, you're not going to get it for 6 to 8 weeks post-match. So you're without your guns or whatever, anything you're shipping in your Pelican case for close to 4 months. And the cost is significant, many hundreds of dollars, $600 to maybe $1,000, depending on what you're shipping, how heavy, yada, yada, yada. So I was looking into this and I was like, wow, this really kind of blows the budget for the match. But luckily, Thomas and the club, and I don't know who owns what, but was very generous. And there's actually a couple loaner rifles and loaner ammo that was available for me. It was an M&P 9 with a Vortex 1-6 scope on top, and an M&P 15 with a 1-6 on top, and an M&P 9 pistol with mags, ammo, and everything else. Thomas helped me organize all that. And so I didn't have to really worry about anything. The only thing I brought with me gear-wise was my unobtainium gear chest rig. It's a simple ultralight chest rig, which was very convenient because I was flying with just a single backpack, a 35-liter pack for 3.5 weeks in Europe. So I had to obviously travel light, and this thing rolls up into nothing, and it carried everything I needed, which was just a couple AR mags, and this has space for pistol mags. I didn't actually wind up using them. Those actually stayed in the bunkers, and we'll talk more about the bunkers in a little bit. But yeah, ultimately logistics were completely irrelevant. Didn't even need to carry my belt and my holster because the guns stayed in the bunker. You only ran the match carrying a dummy rifle, kind of like our rubber duckies that we have here, the fake ARs, except theirs was a fake bolt action just to have some weight on you. And let me tell you, running with one of those fake bolt actions was way worse than running with an AR. That thing was painful. It was brutal. Had a parade sling on it instead of a normal 2-point. So like the trigger guard was like right on my ribs. I was purple for 2 weeks after the match. You're laughing. Those were. It was really like I've never been more sore, like on my upper body after a match than this one, like hands down, just because that rifle was just horrendous. It cracked me in the back of the head going up and over an obstacle at one point, smashed with an inch-thick steel pipe that's there for a fake barrel. Man, it was tough. Yeah, so long story short, didn't have to bring anything over aside from just some very basic personal gear. And it certainly made things way easier than, even traveling to a match around the corner from me because I didn't have to pack a thing.
I must say that you're talking about shipping the guns. The group that did Finish Brutality, they probably did that because they had so many guns. Because if you look into it, it's probably easier if you just take one AR and one pistol with you. I travel all the time with guns, and the state side was actually a lot easier to get permits and stuff than the Dutch side.
Mm-hmm.
But it is possible because we get people going to the IPSC matches, for example, World Shoot, the European Shoot, European Championship for IPSC, and they travel with guns. So there's probably possibilities for people that want to shoot their own guns.
I'm sure it's doable, but it just made it so easy, especially because I wasn't going straight to and from the match, and I had a week before and almost 10 days after. Then it wasn't in the cards. But
exactly, and you were in the UK where the semi-autos and the centerfire pistols are forbidden anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So logistically having those loaners available was like that's honestly what made it possible. Without that, I probably wouldn't have been able to attend the match.
Yeah, with a big thank you to my boss in Smith & Wesson.
Yeah,
we'll send him a letter.
Well,
actually, you read him a letter.
Yeah, and honestly, like if you're a good competitive shooter, you can get it done with an M&P pistol and an M&P rifle and a Strike Eagle. Like those are all very, very solid guns. So it's not like you're going over there and shooting something you're not real familiar. Those are the same as every other gun.
Yeah, the experience is not that different, and we'll talk about this, and maybe this is a good segue into the match. But the shooting at the match was such that I didn't feel like I was really at any disadvantage at all shooting those guns compared to bringing my own high-end race stuff. Like I don't think it would have made the slightest bit of difference in how I placed having mine versus having loaners that I'd never touched before in my life.
The ROs actually said that you were one of the fastest shooters every time you came in.
Yeah,
I believe that.
Was that Matt? I mean, Ryan? Shit.
Oh, I said I believe that.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the match. I think so.
Absolutely, going into it.
Yeah, from my perspective, as someone who shot a lot of matches in the U.S. and this is only one of Thomas's match, which is the only one in Europe at this point, other than like Brutality and stuff like that, which are in the same kind of genre, but definitely not a running gun. The biggest difference there was that every time you run a lap, you alternate shooting rifle or pistol because they've got bunkers underground. They had a pistol bunker and a rifle bunker. So you'd run a lap, shoot pistol, run a lap, shoot rifle, run a lap, shoot pistol, back and forth, and you just continue alternating that for as many laps as you shoot. And since I was entered in the badass division, which was a total, I think, of 22 kilometers.
Yeah, 22.
22 kilometers, I had to run 20 laps around the course, and then also 4 laps additional around the whole property on the exterior. So I was running for a while. I was on, probably about 5 hours of running all told, just under that. I was on the course, minus a little bit of wait time. And then remember, there's just about 20 obstacles on every lap. So I did 20 obstacles times 20 laps. We're talking, over 400 obstacles. There were, climbing over things, going under things, climbing cargo nets, jumping off the top of the cargo net into a shipping container full of water and swimming to the other side. Lots of low crawls, slack lines you have to cross with ratchet straps between multiple trees running around, so you go hand over hand all the way. Those were the easiest by far. The low crawls were fine in the beginning, but by the 80th low crawl, I was pretty freaking done with them. Pretty freaking done. And then so you'd run these laps, and then you'd finally, at every lap, you come back and shoot in the bunker, and it's the same stage every time. That's one of the biggest differences, but that's just a factor of how the match had to be run. So that was very different. It enabled me for sure to get faster and faster for the most part, shooting every stage until the end of the day. I could tell I was fatigued. I was missing more, and it was harder to get in position and harder to get the rifle stable. By the time I shot the 8th time through the, or more, I guess, 20 laps, 10, we would have shot 10 total, 10 laps through each of the 2 stages.
So let's kind of talk, when we're talking bunkers here, so to just give people some idea, I guess, I had to kind of look this up. I don't know if you're not good with your geography. The whole country of Holland is a little bit smaller than West Virginia. I think they say it's between the size of Maryland and West Virginia. And the population density, I'm assuming, I haven't looked this up, is probably a little bit higher. So you really have to be careful with where you're shooting, correct? I mean, any kind of round over a berm would most likely be going into a populated area, correct?
Yeah.
So you guys, when you're saying bunker, is this all completely underground then?
It's like an indoor shooting range in the U.S.
Gotcha.
But we have the backstop is sand instead of metal or something.
Gotcha.
That's what we use. I mean, there's shooting ranges where they have a metal backstop, but there's also shooting ranges that have a rubber granulate made out of old tires.
Yeah. But yeah, so that gives an idea. So they don't necessarily have the outdoor ranges we do because the population density, the size of everything. I mean, that's the big difference. So that's kind of one of the things I want people to realize is this is different, not to be different, but these are the restrictions that Thomas is working with, and he's making a really fun sounding match just out of that. So, yeah, I guess you, John or Thomas, kind of whoever go on, whatever you want to talk about next on the way the match runs.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to do you remember specifically all maybe not all, but a bunch of the different obstacles that there were?
Yeah, I could probably, honestly, I ran that thing so many damn times, I could probably tell you exactly what the sequence is. So actually, before I talk about that, let's talk about the scoring. So what was very unique and different than anything we have, and in some ways I actually think it's really great, is they have an RFID, everybody had an RFID tag card they gave you to put on a lanyard around your neck. Because you're running all these laps, that's the best way to swipe as you pass the start finish point, to actually swipe you swipe as you go past, and also when you start and when you end your race. Since I ran technically 3 independent races, I had to swipe in, swipe out, swipe in, swipe out, swipe in, swipe out. And then on all the individual laps, I would also tap the sensor as well. So this data doesn't make it to practice score, because practice score I don't think has any facility to show this, but somewhere in the database I could even see my lap times and see how slow I got throughout the day. But then once you tapped in, you started your lap, you had 3, waist high structures to climb over, made out of lumber, I think. Then you ran around the corner. What was that?
There were pallets.
Pallets, yeah, stacks of pallets. That's right.
Yeah.
Stacks of pallets. Then you ran through into a pretty nasty deep mud pit that had a dead bird floating in it. That was like, knee deep, but it was like thick mud.
Did you see the dead pigeon?
What's that?
Did you see the dead pigeon?
Oh, I stepped right on the dead pigeon the first time. Then I tried to get around it the rest. Then you take a left, you had a little straightaway. Then you got to the slack lines through the woods, through a bunch of different slack lines. Then you'd come out from the slack lines, run a little bit more to another slack line, a bit through the woods, up a small rise, a long straightaway, down a little depression, run up through like a tube you had to crawl up. It was angled up. There was a rope inside to help you. Drop out of the tube, down another long straightaway. Then you came through to an ammo can pickup, and you pick up what I think they were 40 pounds. Is that right? 2018?
Yeah, there were 40 pounds. There was different weights on them, but they were all 40 pounds.
Right. Yeah. One of them said like 30. I'd always grab that. I'm like, this feels no lighter. This is. I tried to grab it every time. Like, at some point I realized this is not any lighter. It's just labeled differently. But you
next time make the 30-pound and actually make it heavier than the other one. So gamers that try to take the lighter ones get screwed.
You don't actually 10 in there. And then you'd carry that down a ways on your, however you wanted to carry it. And there was a heavy tire drag. And then you'd grab your ammo can, throw it on your shoulder, and carry it back to the staging area. So it's two ammo cans, but they were big. They weren't like our green ammo cans. They were like, like AK crates from the 80s or whatever, or something. Big, heavy wooden crates. Or maybe they were metal, but they were big crates. And then I think that was, everything pre-bunker. Then you'd go into one of the two indoor ranges to shoot. So you shot rifle or pistol, and you kind of had to remember which one was yours. I got messed up a couple of times, and actually had to like sit and it was like working it out, doing like algebra in my head, trying to figure out which number lap I was on. And the only way that I could actually figure it out is I looked at my rifle rounds that I had, because you shoot a fixed amount of rounds per stage. So I was able to look at my rounds and figure out whether I was due to shoot rifle or pistol. Burned a couple minutes doing that. And then once you came out of shooting, you then had a low crawl, high crawl, low crawl, another high, low, going under and over beams. Then you had to run through like just a jumbled pile of old tires, and you'd always get trip on them. Then you came around the corner and had a cargo net rope climb. Then down the other side of the rope, down the other side of the cargo net, jump into the tank to swim across the tank. Jump out, do a dummy drag, come around the corner again, do a miserable low crawl through some mud that just got wetter and wetter throughout the day because it was basically underneath the swim tank. Then you come out of there, and then like at least, what was that?
There was another low crawl.
Another low crawl under barbed wire. Then another pallet pile to climb over, then through a little tunnel again, then another pallet to climb over, and then you finish the lap. Yeah. I think that was everything. So
like that.
I hope the viewers were counting. I didn't. I gave up.
Yeah. My knees are hurting just thinking about that.
Yeah. On that note, a lot of crawling. I did run with some very, very thin knee pads. It's like just like a big like compression sleeve for my leg with like maybe, I don't know, half-inch or so of foam over the knees, and I was really glad I had that. Like, whoa, made a big difference.
I bet those tubes, like whenever I have to crawl on a tube, they absolutely destroy my knees.
Mm-hmm.
Like it always that hurts so bad. That it's plastic. It's not like it's hard, but I don't know. Just going knee on that, sucks.
Yeah,
that sounds fun though. That's a lot of. Yeah, that's a lot of obstacles. That sounds awesome.
What was that, Thomas?
My tube is actually made out of sheet metal.
Oh,
so that's even worse.
Yeah, it sucked. I didn't enjoy it.
Did you hear about the guy that cramped up inside?
No.
He cramped up. He had to be dragged out by two guys.
Oh.
I had not heard that. No, wow, that's a good story. He could have. Yeah, there's a rope in there. You could have tied it around his ankle and pulled him out. It was pretty long too. It was probably 30 feet, 35 feet. Yeah, easily 10, 12 meters.
It's a little shorter.
Okay.
But,
Oh, it just felt like that then. Just felt like
probably.
that.
So these shooting stages, have we gone over what each has happened in the rifle and what's happened in the pistol? I don't remember talking about that yet. So
Do you wanna
let's
talk about
maybe
it, John, or should I?
You go ahead. I've been talking.
yeah, go ahead, Thomas.
Well, the pistol stage is 6 plays of 8 inches at a distance of 10 yards, and you make sure you shoot them all. And you got like 1.5 minutes to do it, which seems long, but like I said before, we have people that have never shot before, so you got to give them a chance as well. If they don't hit all of them per target not being down, they get a 2-minute penalty. The rifle stage is there's an 8-inch plate. No, it's a 6-inch plate actually at 50 yards that you have to shoot standing. You have to hit it twice. Then you go into kneeling or sitting, and you have to hit it twice again. And then you go into prone. You have to hit it twice, and then you leave again. And you're not allowed to go into the next position before you have your 2 hits per position. Which means that if you can't hit it, then you get, for each hit that you didn't make, you get 2 minutes penalty.
What did you ever calculate or compute what the average amount of penalties the average person accrued was? I'm curious.
No, I haven't. But if there are penalties, it's mostly the people that haven't shot before.
Sure.
But these are the people that come out of running groups from companies and stuff.
Mm.
So they make up time when they're running, so it kind of evens it out, you know. And at the first one we did, we actually did penalty laps. So we had like a little course on the side where they have to run left, like in biathlon.
Yeah.
And we only did a 3K back then, and I actually quit doing that because we had one competitor that almost did 4K because of the penalty lap.
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm. That's
all
good.
right. So
it's good. What do you call it? Good motivation to learn.
Good
how to
motivation
shoot.
not to miss. Yeah. So let's talk about. So when you're doing the outside loop, where you're carrying a fake gun. I'm assuming this is this because of the laws in Holland, and the guns are stationary. Is that the case with that?
Yeah, we the range is right next to a public bicycle way, and there's a train going by like every 15 minutes or so. On the range itself, it is allowed to carry your gun, but just to not alarm the public too much, that's why we have the dummy guns. When you're actually doing the outside loop, you don't carry your gun with you. You'll leave that at the starting point of the loop, and you pick it back up when you come back doing the rest of the loop, the inside loop. But yeah, that's the reason why we do it that way. It's kind of frowned upon in Holland when you have a gun license because people are not used to it. I mean, we have like 40,000 gun owners, competition shooters. Because in Holland, you can only own guns if you shoot either competition or you hunt. So we have like 40,000 competition shooters and about 40,000 hunters in Holland.
Okay.
And a lot of people are not open about their sport or the hunting, because then people know they have guns and they're always afraid people are gonna steal them or whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gotcha. So, and part of the reason I bring this up, or we talk about this kind of thing, is, again, there could be someone here in America that has a range that maybe won't let them leave the bay with a gun. So they think, oh, there it goes. I can't do a running gun. Well, this is an option right here. You know, you've
Yeah.
got, you just, everyone leaves the guns in the bays and you go and you do things at the rest of this, you know, the range, and you come back and your gun's still there waiting for you. So,
Yeah. If you
again,
want
this
to,
is,
if you don't want them to let them carry a dummy gun, you can always say, for example, you get like a weighted backpack or something. You know, there's always a way to figure something out to make it happen.
yep, exactly.
a little creativity goes a long way.
Yeah.
So, with how many laps people are doing, I'm taking, is there multiple people on the course doing these laps at the same time? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
So, are there different start times still, or is it, I'm guessing people are starting at different times and they just happen to be out at the same time? And if you get to a shooting area at the same time, it's just same thing. Is there wait time on that, or how's any of that work?
Yeah, they start every 5 minutes, and when you get to the shooting, we have stopwatches, so they get a stopwatch, and the time gets deducted from the total time.
Makes sense. So same as we do over here. You just your wait time subtracted out. So,
Yeah.
All right.
I will say,
what?
I will say that the wait times were for me, and I ran on Sunday. Yeah, I started around like 10 o'clock, and I think I ran the 8K first, or 12. How long? What was the longest one?
13.
13. I ran the 13K first, then the 6K, then the 3K. So that was the sequence I ran. And I don't know if there were fewer people or more people on the range at that time, but I never really had a wait time longer than about maybe 2 minutes and 30 seconds or 3 minutes or something. The wait times are very short because the stages are also, typically people would clear the stage very fast. I don't really remember seeing anyone fail, but also with in the rifle range, there were two set up. I guess the range has 3 booths, but there were 2 identical stages set up side by side. So even if somebody was getting stuck, the other one would clear out. So pretty short wait times there. And then the pistol one, since it was just a plate rack, almost everybody was able to clear that pretty fast. So there really weren't much in the way of wait times, but there's a ton of people on the course at any given time, which was kind of neat because normally at our matches, 7 minutes and you're way off in the woods somewhere, and you might see 2 people all race, and you're just stuck with your thoughts and thinking about how much your legs hurt. But on this, because it was almost like a maze, just like kind of weaving around the property. But when Thomas said there's like red and white flags so you don't get lost, it was really like just endless tape on the right and the left, like not like tied to trees. There's like a channel where you really could not even deviate off the course at all. It'd be impossible, even for a guy like me with terrible sense of direction. It was crystal clear where you had to go. So, you'd be like passing people, getting past. There was one 6'6" giant Viking dude who was so fast. Like I felt like I was moving, and this guy just sailed past me. He was a monster. I don't know what race he was running. It wasn't badass because otherwise he would have beat me by an hour. And I only got beat by one person who was just like 4 minutes faster, I think, over the full 22K, which came out to 15 point something miles on my Garmin watch is what it says I ran. 15.6 or something, I think it said I ran. Yeah, so it was kind of neat because you're like people and you're always cheering each other on, and there was like a lot more interactivity than being off in the woods somewhere running alone and wondering if you're even on the right course because you're looking for some like 14-inch piece of yellow tape that's 200 yards ahead. You can't even see it. So at least from that perspective, it was cool to be able to see, and like you're going through the obstacles with the same people, and a lot of times like there were multiple ammo cans to carry and multiple tires to drag, so nobody had to wait for the obstacle. And that meant you're also often dragging tires or carrying ammo cans with people right next to you, so you could share a laugh, whatever, on the way. So that was pretty cool.
No, that sounds like it. That's one thing about running gun compared to like a 3-gun match. Is 3-gun match, you're with a squad, you're all going around together, you're hanging out and you're talking, and there's a lot more of that camaraderie while you're shooting. Now, run and gun, that's all happening at the start and finish line, so you still kind of get that. But during the match itself, like John said, you're kind of on your own. I mean, I get stuck as RO, late on RO day, and most of the time, except for ROs at each stage, I don't see anyone. I don't pass anyone. No one passes me. I'm just out in the woods on my own. So it would be kind of neat, following and passing people and, getting that part of it. So any more you guys want to add about the match, the flow, like how that works before we kind of go on to the next topic?
I think the only thing we didn't specifically mention, although we referred to it kind of obliquely, was that you run with your dummy rifle, but then your pistol and your rifle stay on their respective ranges. So they're just like sitting in baskets, and just everyone put a piece of tape around the grip of each gun with like their runner number, basically. I think mine was like 81. And so when you came in, you just, holler 81, and an RO would hand you a little plastic basket with your pistol inside, locked back, a stopwatch that he starts and puts in the basket. So, we, unlike in the US where you have to carry your own watch, there, all the ROs managed keeping track of wait times. So they just have like a bank of stopwatches ready to go. And kudos to you and the ROs, by the way, super professional, super dialed. There was no communication errors. The briefs, not that there really was a brief, but like instructions were very straightforward, and everything ran absolutely like clockwork. So very much like in the US, matches only help and run smoothly with a really great cadre of ROs.
Thank you. I'll pass it on.
Please do.
So yeah. Yep. Sorry, go on.
So that was that. So you pick up your gun when you shoot, and then you hand it back when you're done, and then off you go and you run. I think that should be pretty clear, I think, by now.
Yeah, so I guess this is something I hadn't thought about. If someone's coming from America, I mean, does everyone pretty much in Holland speak English? Is it the majority of people? I mean, when you're running your match, if there's not a Yankee around like John, what are all the range instructions in, language-wise?
Normally in Dutch, but most people in Holland speak English.
Okay, that's kind of what I assumed. I've watched IPSC videos before, and it seems like even at those like the big world matches, it seems like there's a lot of the range commands are just English as well.
Yeah. If you IPC match, it's English.
Yeah, I think the range commands are an international standard in English. Make ready, are you ready, stand by. Those are all international standard. Everything else could be in a different language. If it's like a local match in making it up, I don't know, like the Philippines, and they're shooting IPSC, it'll be Tagalog minus the range commands themselves. But I didn't really have any issues getting around, communicating anything. Across all of Europe, most people speak enough English to get by. And in the rare event you run into someone who doesn't, Google Translate is so good now. You can like talk into it, and it'll just spit out in whatever language you want in audio, and then the other person will talk into your phone, and it'll just spit it out to you, read it out. So really no issues at all. Train system was super easy to use. I used trains to get around. First time I've ever taken a train to a run and gun. That was pretty cool. And the interesting thing is, when I was in Amsterdam and looking at like just trying to figure out, when I was planning out my travel logistics in advance, I looked at the drive time from the airport to Hulten, which is the town where the range is located. It was like 2 hours and 15 minutes or something like that. And then I looked at the public transportation on the trains, and here in the US, it'd be like 3 days. There it was like 2 hours and 20 minutes. It was 5 minutes longer. It was like, it's just as fast to get around via train. So we really do a very poor job in this country of making public transport easy and convenient. So yeah, it was really cool to do that. And I wound up staying with the hotel nearby, like 10 minutes away, that Thomas helped me organize. And then I just grabbed an Uber in the morning. It was 10-minute drive to get out actually to the fields where the range is located.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, we're not. I mean, I don't know, and I mean, some of it's that population density thing, but
sure.
mass transit is definitely not the thing it is. And I mean, I've been in Ireland, and it's the same way there. It's easier to I didn't rent a car the week I was out there. It's just easier to take a train everywhere.
Yeah, the bus.
So yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sure. Population density, we're a little bit bigger than
Yeah.
the Netherlands.
Well, again, the whole country here is the size of one of our kind of smaller states. So
yeah,
it's kind of what it is.
Our population is 18 million, so
18 million.
Yeah.
Yes, that's definitely much higher than West Virginia, which is a couple million. But yeah, so like we talked about, super dense nation, fairly limited geographically. So yeah.
Yeah. And is it fairly flat in Holland? I guess I don't. I'm trying to think where they're at compared to like everything else. What's the elevation like?
our highest mountain is 900 feet or something.
Okay, so it's
very flat.
It's Ohio.
It's very.
We get up. We do. I think Ohio. We got a couple that we get up in the 1,200 feet, and that is like you're high up there. Yeah, we're at like 900, 1,000. So, all right. So Thomas, is there anything else you want to kind of add about the match before we kind of move on to the next topic?
No, not really. I think it covered most of it. So.
Okay. So I guess the next thing I was going to ask is, and this is for maybe we'll do Thomas first and then John. I guess future as you're running, I mean, I'm assuming you're planning on running more of these. Do you see, you have any ideas for changes, or are you kind of keeping the format you got, or what's your plans?
I think I'm going to kind of keep the format I got. Of course, John and me talked a little bit about things that could change a little bit. I still have to think about it, but with the possibilities that I have and the laws that we have, it's kind of difficult to change it completely. Like when you don't have a gun permit or you're not a member of a club, you can only shoot rimfire handguns or rimfire bolt action rifles. So that kind of limits the whole thing too. So yeah, it's I'm still going to do the one time a year. In the beginning, we did two a year. We did a winter and a summer edition, but it's twice the work, twice the cost. You have to have twice the amount of people to run it, even if it's the same guys, but they have to have time. And I found out then I would have like on one day, I would have like 40 competitors for a match. So now that we do one, last year it was fully booked for one day, which was like 75 people. And then this year, I was planning last year, I was planning to do 2 days this year. And I was like, well, I'm going to open up the Sunday first. And then if that's full, then I'll open the Saturday. And I opened it up on February 18 at 12 at noon. And I opened up Saturday at 5 p.m. on the same day because it was just flooding. It was crazy. And
that's awesome.
A few weeks before the match, we had like 180 competitors, but a few dropped out. So we ended up like with 155, 157 or something.
So how many were in the badass division? Because I like 18. 18. That's awesome. I like the hard. Make it as hard as possible. I'm not going to win the match I come to, so I might as well suffer as long as I can out there.
Well, I wanted to get good value for money, so I had to make sure I did as much running and shooting as possible, going all the way across the pond.
Absolutely.
When I brought up the badass division, I was like, if only one guy does it, that would be worth it, you know. And then at some point, I had like 18 entries, and I was like, what the hell?
People want to suffer, and it wasn't only guys. There was a couple women in the badass division too.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, I mean that's what. Did you ever shoot the rock hards back?
Yeah.
At Rock Castle. Yeah. So they had a Yeah, they had a badass division the last 2 or 3 years they had it. You shoot the whole match in a day.
Yeah.
If you're an RO, which is when I participated, you pretty much had to. So, yeah, that was awesome. And then you got your little badass tab, which was
Yeah.
always fun because it's one of those things you got to earn. You don't just get it for showing up.
Yeah.
So, all right, John, is there anything you want to add as far as his match? Or you could even say, hey, if someone in America was going to throw a match, was kind of restricted because of their range to something similar to this, did you have like maybe recommendations or things that thoughts on it?
Well, when Thomas and I talked about ways to, or so I'll say this, if you're an American or from any other nation and thinking about traveling to Europe to attend Thomas's match, it's important that you're aware of what the shooting is like. It's not going to be the most challenging shooting, and if you're regularly a top shooter at any other match, you're not going to be challenged. But that's just a factor of what the match is. And I knew that going in, and I went for the cultural experience to try something new and make it to a match that none of my other friends ever have, because it why not? Seemed cool to do. So I was totally open to that. Went in eyes wide open, and it was a great experience. I am super glad I went. It was worth every penny and every day that I went. There probably are some ways to make the match a little more challenging. Like instead of having everybody shoot the same stage, you could potentially do like further away, or maybe a little bit more movement. Like you could have, because there's like a shooting bench where when we said on the rifle that you had to shoot from kneeling or sitting, that was actually up on top of the bench. So you'd shoot standing, jump up on top of the bench, shoot kneeling or sitting, and then go prone on top of the bench as well. It's a pretty long bench and even fit me. But you could probably put in some more motion and have people like go up and then down and then up and then down, and like make them get their heart rate up while they're actively shooting. And there's probably enough space, certainly on the rifle side, that you could have two separate shooting stages, one more beginner oriented and one more more advanced oriented. Or you could really just go like really small targets, like put on some like 4-inch pieces of steel or 2-inch pieces of steel at 50 yards. It's just still not particularly challenging, right? That's still at 50 yards, a 2-inch piece of steel. That's still 4 MOA, which any rack grade rifle can shoot, but you probably see a lot more people timing out, and probably put some further stratification into the scoring. But these are just like observations. It's Thomas's match, and run it however you want, and I hope more people will go because it's super cool. Totally worth it. What it did make me think of is, could we make a run and gun at an indoor range in a downtown facility in the United States? Because that's where I saw, which has never been done. Like you go, in downtown Dayton, Ohio or something, I'm sure there's an indoor range. And if you went and shot something and then you had to run from there to a check-in point at like a local park a mile away, check in with the RO, run back, shoot another stage. Like it could totally be done. And there could be running guns like literally around the corner from people's houses who live in population centers. And it would be the exact same experience that we had in Holland. So that's what it really made me think of. Like, could we start doing running guns in downtown? You just look like a dude out for a run. Obviously, you wouldn't even run with a fake rifle. You just run maybe with like a backpack, like Thomas said, or give everyone like a tire or something really annoying. And then there'd just be a lunatic running around with an empty tire. But I could see a scenario where that could happen and be pretty interesting.
Yeah, you need to find one of those parks with like the loop of exercise equipment around it. Just specific for exercise equipment. No, I like that. And I guess to Thomas's point, like I run a 3-gun match. I have stage ideas. I could design a match way, way harder than what I do. And I think most match directors do this. If you know your clientele, the people showing up to your match, if I try to put this like level up here, 1 or 2 of us would clear it and everybody else would time out on everything. And that's not really a match people want to keep shooting. So you get your balance, you say, okay, here's my top shooter. Here's like my brand new shooter. Well, that brand new shooter may not, they may not complete everything, but I still want it to be fun for them. But this high level shooter, I want a stage that they can still enjoy. And And there's always that balance. And, you know, if you've got a match with a lot of people who have very little shooting experience, well, then sometimes you got to kind of err on the side of easier than harder. And then, you know, for someone like John, oh, you're just going to have to shoot faster, you know, if you want the challenge or whatever it is, you know. I mean, when you're doing 22 miles and all these obstacles, my guess is that your shooting at the very end was probably not as clean as your shooting at the very beginning.
Yeah,
I mean, that many obstacles, all your stabilizer muscles are trashed. I mean, all those.
Yeah, I was legitimately moving pretty slow. Matter of fact, I could tell you, I brought up my Garmin stats here. I gained over 15 miles, a little under 300 feet of elevation change. So not very much, about 30 feet per lap. So yeah, pretty flat country.
That's one hill at Heartbreak.
Yeah, exactly. One hill. And where is this? And then so my pace on the 13K, I averaged 15 minutes and 40 seconds per mile. And then on the 6K, I averaged 22 minutes per mile. And then on the final 3K, I averaged 22:45. So yeah, my pace dropped significantly. I was definitely getting tired at night. And I pushed pretty hard on the 13 because that was the individual one, because there's individual scores that I wanted to do the best on. And then I was like, and whatever I have left in the tank, that'll just be what's left for the 6 and the 3. And it worked out because I wound up taking second place. Oh, you can't see that. Second place in Badass. And then I got High Foreigner in the 13K and High Foreigner in Badass again. So I will say, if you're a really strong runner and you want to get a trophy, go to Thomas's match, because if you're like a solid distance runner, you'll win, like straight up, as long as you're like a half competent shooter. So it's a good way for a sandbagger who just wants to accumulate trophies to stick up on the wall behind them for their action shooting show appearances. Then yeah, it'd be a great match to go to.
That's great. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to hit my running harder before I get out that way. So has not been. I've been a lot more lifting and a lot less running. So well, I mean, I really wanted people to hear about this episode, because of just how different the match is. But again, I want to emphasize the point, like, set up one of these matches, use what you have around here. My sprinter match is probably more in between this and a real running gun. You know, if you love 10K running guns, my sprinter match is not the match for you. But it kind of fits in the middle of that. We're able to do, it's outdoor. I'm able to do some actual stages where people are moving around. We can move from stage to stage with guns. But my whole course is only a half mile or something like that. You know, I mean, generally my average is like 12 to 15 minutes for most competitors. You know, it is a sprint. It is boom, 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 90-second stages, or usually around that. So in some ways it's a little bit like this. In other ways, Thomas's is more like a real running gun, because you're really, you know, with the obstacle course and everything, you are really covering some distance. So I guess, do you guys have any final thoughts about this? Let's start with you, Thomas. You got any final thoughts? Anything you want to share with anyone watching this about your match?
Yeah, it's for most people, it's like a test for themselves. Like, you know, you at some point, like John said, it's becoming so hard that you just have to finish it for yourself. I mean, you can drop out anytime you want, but it's a bigger accomplishment if you finish it. And to me, I don't care how long you take. You can do a whole day on the 3K if you want. There's no limit on time. Shooting wise, yeah, it's simple, but at some point when you're really tired, it becomes hard. And I normally have the heavy stuff for your arms right before you go shooting, you know, just to mess them up.
It works.
Yeah, I know.
That's the point of being a match. If you're going to be a match director and you do all this work, making other people suffer we're all self-loathing people, so we want people to suffer as much as us.
Well, I can tell you one thing. Building the match took me 2 weeks. Breaking it down, I did it in 1.5 days, and 2 weeks later, I couldn't walk anymore because of the pain in my back.
Right.
So it's not just the competitors that suffer.
Well, we appreciate you putting it on.
For any match director out there.
Yeah.
All right, John, any closing thoughts for you?
The only other one I'll say is, again, I'll encourage everyone to go. It's a great experience. Holland's a beautiful country, lots of good food, lots of cool things to see. And the match is a bargain. I believe for Badass Division to run all 3 races was €70, which is like $80. So if you compare that to some of the match fees and the way they're escalating as this becomes, a bigger and bigger sport with more and more profit to be made, if you find a really cheap flight, it might not be that much more expensive to go to Europe to do a match than it is to sign up for one of the really, really big matches we have here. So something to consider. It's not out of reach.
I must say that the price is going up a little bit, mainly because our government decided that for sporting matches, the VAT has to go up.
Oh, really? Taxes, man.
Yeah.
You can escape them no matter what country you're in.
It sucks over here.
Well, yeah, America is not without its political problems and tax problems either. So
I know.
yeah. Well, that's awesome. I hope some other people go on. I would love to get out there someday. I'd actually, when I found out John was going out there, I already had a hunting, not at the same time, but I went on a hunting trip earlier this year, and I was like, well, that's kind of my away from home, funds. But I may have to look at that in the future, because that does sound like a lot of fun if we can keep the world out of World War III here.
We're doing our best.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
From your lips to God's ears.
So, what was that, John?
From your lips to God's ears.
Yeah. So, thanks again for you guys coming on. Anyone that's stuck with it, I meant to do this at the beginning, but thanks for watching the show. Like, share, subscribe to it for us. Share if you got new people wanting to get into run and gun or 3-gun or any of the action shooting sports. We'd love to have them watch, and hopefully we can help them get out to a match. So thanks again, and we'll see you guys all out in the range.
Awesome. Thanks again, Ryan.
Thanks, man. Thank you, John.
Yeah, likewise. Great to see you, Thomas.